Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. And yes, the mic is back. Went to the music shop and they tried to sell me a $120 fix, and I went to the hardware store and got a 85-cent fix. That's how we do it around here. In these parts, in this neighborhood, in this neck of the woods. Anyway, so the mic is back in operational order. It actually wasn't the mic itself. It was the thing that holds the mic broke. So the mic was floppy. Yeah, this is where we cover the impending climate crisis, chaos, catastrophe, which is the biggest news story on the planet. All other political shenanigans aside, nothing holds a candle to this story. So bringing you couple articles today, providing more evidence and just more evidence that things are bad. Both of these articles are from Imogen. Thank you, Imogen, for posting these. This is from Svalbard. 200 reindeer died on an Arctic island, and researchers think climate change is to blame. Okay. I mean, I understand. You got to be scientific, of course. More than 200 reindeer have been found dead this summer in the Norwegian archipelago of Svalbard, and climate change appears to be the killer, researchers say. The reindeer likely starved to death after being unable to find food to graze on, according to scientists at the Norwegian Polar Institute, a federal scientific research agency that monitors the wild reindeer population. Never before have researchers seen so many cadavers at once, Norway's public broadcaster NRK said. Experts say that Svalbard is on the front lines of the climate crisis. Svalbard is among the areas that most clearly notices climate change, which has consequences for the animals living here, NPI stated. Longyearbyen, the world's northernmost town and capital of Svalbard, is probably warming faster than any other town on Earth, according to the Norwegian Meteorological Institute. Put that in your solar minimum pipes and smoke it. That's because of accelerated Arctic warming. Rising temperatures reduce ice and snow cover, which means less sunlight is reflected and more solar energy is absorbed, restarting the cycle. Reindeer populations have declined globally by 56% since the mid-1990s, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration 2018 Arctic Report Card. Reindeer aren't the only Arctic animals suffering the effects of climate change in Norway. When sea ice melts, polar bears isolated on ice floes similarly risk starvation. A team of 3 scientists spent 10 weeks investigating the reindeer population, which the NPI has been monitoring for 40 years. The area has been unusually rainy since, causing the ground to become icy and tough to penetrate, NPI stated on the Instagram. As a result, the reindeer probably couldn't dig through to reach the pastures below. The relatively large number of calves born last year exacerbated the problem. The youngest and weakest animals are often the first to die in harsh conditions like these, according to the Institute. Starving reindeer are now a common sight. Kim Holman, international director of the NPI, told CNN earlier this year. Svalbard is also known as the location of the global seed vault, where hundreds of thousands of varieties of seeds are preserved, and a facility dug into the mountain to safeguard the world's plants from disaster. And what they don't give you in this article is that the seed vault was flooded recently. In the last few years, flooded because the seed vault was built in a place where it was supposed to be perpetually frozen, and the permafrost is melting, the ice and snow is melting, and therefore the seed vault, which was supposed to be one of the safest and coldest places on the planet, was too warm, and it flooded. So we're hearing more and more stories like this: reindeer starving, polar bear starving, whales starving, sea otters starving, fish starving, insects dying. There's not the ecological collapse is already happening. It is happening right now. The environment is collapsing and not able to sustain wild animal populations. And we'll see how long we can sustain ourselves, given that we grow or we have hugely technologically advanced ways of getting our food, and other animals do not. But this is just happening all over the globe. How long will we be able to get our food? Bets are on this year or next year or the next year, being the time in which food collapse starts to hit human beings. This is from the Siberian Times from 3 days ago, July 26th. More than 2 million hectares on fire in Siberia, with tundra on fire destroying the permafrost. Most fires will not be extinguished, the major cities polluted by fumes. The worst hit regions of Krasnoyarsk, Yakutia, and Irkutsk in the summer fire season seen as worse than recent years in the spread and intensity of the infernos. Some 783,931 hectares of wildfires are raging on permafrost zones, including the Arctic in Yakutia, officially Sakha Republic, and the Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Region, causing possibly irreparable damage to the tundra. Other infernos are sweeping through boreal forests, which are known as the lungs of the northern hemisphere. Here, centuries-old cedar, pine, and larch trees are turned to ashes. In many, indeed most areas, the authorities acknowledge they will not be able to extinguish the fires because the areas are too remote and do not threaten people or strategic facilities. The cost of putting them out is seen as too great. Whoa. Eventually, rain and snow will do the job, yet there is concern at the pollution pumped into the atmosphere and the loss of vast forest tracts. So they're listing a bunch of fires here. I'm not going to read them all. There's a video here to watch as well. I'm going to link this below. The area on fire, according to official statistics, is 2.24 million hectares larger than the country of Wales. Smoke is reaching both Novosibirsk, and Ekaterinburg, Russia's third and fourth cities by population. Novosibirsk, along with Tomsk and Kemerovo, are covered with the smoke. For the fifth day in succession in the later part of this week, the situation worsened. Cardiologist at Novosibirsk City Hospital, number 1, Irina Pankova, said the number of people complaining of headaches, high blood pressure, and problems with breathing has significantly risen. In Krasnoyarsk city, also hit by smoke, the situation is much worse. There has been a pall of fumes since the 13th of July. So there's pictures here. And of course, we're seeing this more and more. Arctic areas on fire, tundra, permafrost areas, places that usually were frozen or very, very cold most of the year round, hence the name permafrost, which was permanently frozen. As all these places thaw out, things start catching on fire. Lastly, in this video, I promised to read you something about Trump or getting rid of Trump, and you can log this in with how do we actually fight climate change, or how do we actually make a change in how our country is run, or how human beings react to climate change, or how it is we could radically change the world. Any of those, that whole umbrella covers kind of the kernel of the idea of the story. Need a blueprint to remove Trump? Look at what Puerto Ricans did in just 16 days. This is from Common Dreams, from July 25th. In less than 16 days, Puerto Rican Governor Ricardo Rossello is expected to resign after mass protests. I can't even recall all the horrible shit Trump has done in just the last 16 days. While many progressives were dismayed to learn to lean, on Thursday that Democratic leaders remained reticent to call for impeachment proceedings against President Donald Trump, some looked with admiration at the hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans who successfully forced the governor from office with days of nonviolent protests. Governor Ricardo Rosello's resignation Wednesday night followed nearly 2 weeks of historic, sustained demonstrations by Puerto Ricans angry over leaked messages showing the governor and his associates denigrating his constituents, as well as a corruption scandal. Puerto Ricans have given their fellow Americans the blueprint to remove Trump. The problem is that Americans are way too comfortable and cowardly to actually do some shit like this. We are probably the worst nation when it comes to doing stuff like this. Other nations have had it up to here with climate change and shit like this. Britain, France, Sweden, Australia. We have school strikes. We have people on strike and protesting everywhere. And in the United States, we have, a faint murmur of protest. And I don't know why. People aren't mad. I mean, supposedly people are really, really mad about Trump, but if 1 million people showed up in front of the White House, it would be, things would radically change very quickly. Recently, there was a massive protest in Hong Kong, so they were going to change the extradition rules in Hong Kong. Right now, there are no extradition rules in place. You cannot. If you do a crime, say in Taiwan or in China, and you get to Hong Kong, you can't be extradited. So they were going to change the extradition rules. And the problem with them changing this is that it was going to be easier to kind of hunt down, or for China or to round up dissidents and people vocal against the ruling class or ruling party, or the regime that's in power now. So it was going to be easier to get those people out and to have them put on trial on mainland China. 1 million people were in the streets in Hong Kong. 1 million people, and guess what? They changed the ruling. They were like, nah, we're not going to do that. Sorry. And I'm telling you, if 500,000 people showed up in front of the White House, things would change very, very quickly. If 500,000 people showed up in front of Congress, demanding the Pelosi or Schumer and get the hell out, demanding that McConnell, Trump, et al. get the hell out, things would change very, very quickly. As did in past, massive protests in the '60s, and before that with massive labor protests. Changes were made because people were willing to put themselves out in the street and to undergo hardship and face a little bit of danger. We can't do that, apparently. Puerto Ricans have given their fellow Americans a blueprint to remove Trump, wrote one progressive critic on social media. Meanwhile, in the wake of the former special counsel Robert Mueller's testimony before the House Judiciary Committee, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi reportedly dismissed Representative Gerald Nadler's suggestion in a closed-door meeting that House committees begin drafting articles of impeachment against the president. At the hearing, Mueller testified that Trump was not exculpated for obstruction of justice, whatever, that's bullshit anyways, but he can be impeached for other things, not even pertaining to Russiagate. There's the emoluments clause, which he is violating all over the place, is one of the things that he could be impeached for. A number of observers noted, and maybe I don't know if you can be impeached for just engaging in just really hostile acts against, fellow lawmakers or citizens, I don't know. I bet there's a way to do that, but no confidence. And people, often nations get rid of their rulers by just massive protest. No confidence. No thank you. We don't want you anymore. Get the fuck out. And, and pretty much they'll stay there until they get the fuck out and somebody else gets in there. A number of new elections are put in place, or et cetera, et cetera. A number of observers noted after the hearing that those facts, along with Trump's alleged violation of the Constitution's emoluments clause, advocacy for violence against his political opponents, they're saying exactly the same things I just said, attacks on the free press, other alleged misconduct provided enough evidence for Democrats to draft articles of impeachment in less than 16 days from the time the first news broke of his horrible and hateful comments. Puerto Rican Governor Ricardo Rosello is expected to resign after mass protests. Tweeted Human Rights Campaign Press Secretary Charlotte Clymer, I can't even recall all the horrible shit Trump has done in the last 16 days. So there you go. And that's also one, a way that if enough people were in the streets saying this climate change is really, really a problem, and we shouldn't even be, we shouldn't even address any other issues. Climate change needs to be number one in the books. If a protest massive enough happened, not only the awareness around that would change really fast, but also, the protests by XR in England changed the awareness in that country around, some people would say, no, it didn't, but you had the government, the parliament suddenly discussing, it was national news. It was a big enough protest that a lot of people became aware of the problem. You can't dispute that, period. If you have people on national TV, Extinction Rebellion on national TV, debating the problem, basically facing the dumbass bought and sold rotating heads, talking heads that are their national media. They couldn't find a way out of discussing the problem. And there you go. So anyways, I'm going to link this below. Maybe you find this interesting. Maybe you don't. Let's discuss. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.